Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Today we're talking Star Wars Armada. We're talking points adjustments. I'm going to give you my top 5 cards that need to see a points adjustment. We are after Worlds. Worlds has happened. We're kind of starting a new season. We're awaiting, word on organized play, rapid reinforcements, any kind of rules changes or points adjustments. All of that stuff is in prime time to happen, and soon. So with that in mind, I wanted to talk about some cards that I think are at the top of my list for cards that need to have their prices adjusted moving into a potential points rebalance or anything like that. So I also want to hear from you guys. Let me know down in the comments your cards that you think should be hit. Now, just because something isn't in my top 5 doesn't mean I don't think it should be adjusted. It was a tough cut. There were some very, very closes, like 6s and 7s, but I had to narrow it down to a top 5. And so we're going to do that today. If you guys haven't already, there is still time left to enter to win that $25 Amazon gift card. You just have to leave a comment and be a subscriber. So it's as simple as that. It can be on this or one of my other videos as well. So we're going to be announcing the winner of that this week at the end of one of my videos. So stay tuned for that. All right, let's go ahead without further ado and jump into this Star Wars Armada list of top 5 cards that need a points adjustment. Coming in with number 5, Asajj Ventress. I know this is a new card. This is the newest card on the list, and it's difficult to talk about a card that's so new that hasn't seen as many years of play and doesn't have as much hype to balance it out. In this case, I think she needs a point reduction. I think 4 points is too much for her, even though I acknowledge that 4 points is not a terribly expensive price. It's sort of a mid-price for an officer. There's plenty of good officers that cost more than Asajj, and there's plenty of I'd say lower quality officers that cost less than Asajj, or at least lower quality on the entire spectrum of things, not necessarily lower quality than Asajj. My main issue with Asajj Ventress, as she is right now, is that she doesn't do a whole lot in a lot of Separatist lists. And when she does there's other cards that are cheaper and that can potentially do it much better. So she has a lot of requirements. For one, she's Separatist only, which is a given. She's a Separatist. She's 4 points, which puts her in a medium cost bracket, and so that's usually at that point, at that cost level. If she's not like a 1 or a 2, usually at a 3 or higher, you're taking them deliberately. You're taking them for a specific reason to do something specific, and that means that they're going to work. You're going to make sure that they work. So in order to take Asajj Ventress, you kind of have to build a list, maybe not completely around her, but build a list that involves her. And in order to do that, you're not really getting as much. Typically for Separatist lists that involve putting raid tokens on other ships, because she's going to basically take a raid token off of an enemy ship to give a command token of any type to a friendly ship. Now, there's a lot of requirements. They have to be close enough. They have to be 1 to 5, which isn't too steep a requirement. But you also have to exhaust her, so you can only do this once per turn. You also have to have raid tokens on that ship already, which means you can't. That limits when you can activate her, or at least limits like the order that you have to do the raid token stuff early. And then, if that raid token is, something that can happen like only at a specific time, like you need this ship to be able to get close enough to attack, to put raid tokens on another ship, it means you have to sort of move that ship, like that has to be your spearhead. It's not as flexible. Now, there are certain things that will put raid tokens all over the place, like Dooku. But usually you don't want those raid tokens to go away. There are a few niche cases where Asajj is actually really good, or at least I won't say she's never really good, but I mean where she actually does what she's supposed to do. And I feel like that's with Dooku, but Dooku's not all that popular, and he's also probably a little overcosted. And I feel like Asajj and Dooku are sort of waiting for new mechanics to develop to really make them shine. I mean, I've run Dooku, and he's all right. He doesn't shine that much, and there's too many very easy ways to kind of counter that. And so maybe that's the idea with Asajj, is that she's there in case, if they were just going to get rid of those rage tokens anyway, at least you get something out of it. But then you're putting a whole lot of points into not actually getting getting a token. And there's a lot of other cards that, like, Comms Net can get you a token for 2, right? Or for 3, rather. Or whatever. I'm just saying, like, it's not... Or no, for 2. Yeah, you can get a Comms Net gives you a token for 2 points. So I think she should be... Honestly, I'd love to see her be free, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think 1 to 2 points works for her personally. I don't see her actually going down to 1 point because of the fact that, you have to future-proof it, and she could potentially have good synergies with other list archetypes that will develop in the future as new rapid reinforcements and other cards come out. So I think 2 points is still a little bit much, but I think she could probably fit into a little bit more lists that aren't specifically designed to use her, and she could be kind of just a flex crew member at 1 or 2 points, and that's kind of where I feel she belongs. But if you disagree, or if you've seen her be incredibly powerful, let me know. I don't think there's going to be too many people that can say that she's been incredibly powerful. I also wouldn't mind a complete rework of her card, but, it is what it is. She's giving you the ability to get any type of token, but there's so many other cards that give you tokens that and for 4 points, and taking up an officer slot too. It's tough. It's tough. All right, let's move on to number 4. As far as our points adjustments, it's going to be one of my favorite cards in the game, the Linked Turbo Laser Towers. Look, my own bias is that I love this card. It's a great card. It's one of those cards that is always good on almost every single ship in the game that can take it. And it does a lot of different things. I think this one needs to go up in price a little bit relative to how useful it is. A big part of this card's appeal is it's not a modification. So it allows you use of a really strong, one of the strongest turbo lasers slots in the game without having to consume your modification slot, which is very, very nice. It also stacks very well with double turbo laser ships that might want to have a spinal armament or something like that, or some kind of other modification on them. It gives you a reroll every time you attack, which means it works really well with salvo in the latest mechanics there, which is very cool. And it has the additional bonus of being able to give you a big shot against the squadron. This is a really nice thing when you're doing a big squadron push, but maybe you've got like that one ace that you just can't take down, and you really need to kill that ace, and you're trying to get that accuracy because they have the scatter, and you need to get as many dice as you can. You can try to get extra dice out of it. I've seen people, do crazy things like spend a concentrate fire and then an external Rax and a Link Turbo Laser Towers on a single ace, and roll like 5 or more dice in some cases. It's just 6 or more dice even. You can really do some crazy things. So it's just a great all-around card, giving you all of those rerolls, especially red dice, which are most in need of rerolls. So it's super good. So many ships can use this, and 7 points is, while that's an expensive number, it's not necessarily expensive for turbo lasers, and it's not necessarily expensive for a card that you can use on every attack, and including on your opponent's turn when you salvo. It's so good. I think it needs to go up a little bit, probably to 8 or 9. I don't think it needs to necessarily be 10, but I wouldn't be surprised if it made it to 10. So I'm going to recommend 9 for this one, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Moving on to number 3. It is Darth Vader. Look, I love this one. This is another card that I really love, and I always am astounded at how incredibly cheap he is, considering how much benefit a fleet can get from Darth Vader. Look, Darth Vader Commander is not cheap. He's one of the most expensive commanders in the game. He's giving you rerolls. But then again, you can run a different commander and then just put Darth Vader in your fleet on a Gozanti or something like that for only 1 point. And granted, the reason I think he initially came out as 1 point is because he's choking out other officers. But the problem is there's so many other officers that lose their functionality that there ends up being no opportunity cost, or barely any opportunity cost to use this Darth Vader on a Gozanti. He's got good enough range. He usually affects the entire fleet. He usually allows you to choke out an officer that you're not going to need anymore, especially those officers that have a one-time per game ability. Ozzel, for example, he doesn't exhaust. Well, he's not discarded after he uses his ability. He's still there. He's Vader fuel. You know, a lot of these characters are Vader fuel after they do what they're supposed to do. There's other characters that sort of lose their functionality, like Director Krennic. Once the long and medium range game is over and everybody's close and bumped, well, then Krennic is virtually useless to you by that point, so you choke him out. Well, and you can choke out your commander too. When the time is right, and having that flexibility has proved to be incredibly useful. And it's just for a single point, he gives you the option of having crucial game-swinging rerolls across your entire fleet for the most part. Not to mention the fact that there are super cheap officers out there. There's, skilled first officer. I mean, you can really give your whole fleet rerolls. Now, granted, you're only getting it one time per, but usually that's all you need. You save it for that time when you actually need it. And then again, on your flagship, you can make it 2 times per. He's just so incredibly good. 1 point, he ends up becoming an auto-include. And the other thing is the opportunity cost of, if you run him, then you can't run the other Darth Vaders. And there's Darth Vader boarding teams, and there's Darth Vader in squadrons. And that's the opportunity cost here. But still, if they bumped him up to like 5 points, or even 4 points, or somewhere in there, like he's still giving you so much use. I think it just becomes maybe a little bit less of an auto-include. It makes that losing that flotilla, because gives your opponent a little more incentive to go after that Gozanti, because now instead of just being 24 points, it might be 30 points or something like that. So it means you have to protect that Darth Vader a little bit more. And I think there should be more of a point cost for your opponent for getting Darth Vader killed. Moving on to number 2. It's thermal shields. We have seen so much thermal shields havoc wreaked over the last couple of years. It's an incredibly good card. It's a super powerful card. It is only usable by Clone Wars factions, but it gets so many loopholes. Like, it takes care of them all. Accuracies can't touch it. Any of that kind of stuff, it can't touch it. You're spending it before the attack dice are even rolled. And in some cases, it can completely shut down big attack pools. Doesn't do a whole lot against death by 1,000 cuts, but it really shuts down the big attack pools. I've seen it do things to me where I had Krennic on a SSD and it just took away all my red dice, and so I had no rerolls at all. And and so it does things like that. I've had opportunities where I had like a long range shot and in a concentrate fire, and it basically cut the dice in half, but then it was obstructed, so I ended up not even be able to make the shot at all. So an attack that would have been 3 or even 4 dice after modifiers ended up having 0 dice, and it completely nullified the attack completely. So it's very strong for what it does, and I love that about it. But it's also only 5 points. It's just an incredibly strong card, and I like that I'm fine with it being limited to Clone Wars factions, I suppose. I don't know why it couldn't eventually be adopted for the other factions, but I guess you got to find ways to give them some of the some bonuses to compete with the bigger factions. But I think even if at an upgrade in point cost, even if this were back up to 7, 7 or even 8, I think it'd still get taken a lot. I think it definitely would. It's a great card, and I think it needs a points adjustment. Which brings us to number 1. The number 1 card I have that needs a points adjustment. If they do one this year, it's... let me know in the comments if you've guessed it already. You can pause it right now and just... All right. Is that what it sounds like when you tap on your keyboard? This is how I type, by the way. I have my keyboard right at my face, and I'm like, ooh, this is that when I'm on Discord or on replying to your comments. This is how I'm doing it. Anyway, number 1, point defense ion cannons. I don't think this came as much of a surprise to anybody. This is an incredibly useful card that works in 100% of builds. Any ship that can take it. I feel like this has nudged out almost every other ion cannon in the game. It's First off, it's doing something totally different. It's not like even an ion cannon. It's a defensive upgrade on the ion cannon slot. I mean, I see the idea of what it's doing, but it's only 4 points, and it completely wrecks squadrons. Completely wrecks squadrons. It completely, just totally changes the squadron game. It's such a hard counter to things like Bomber Command Center, or at least a really, really strong mitigation to it. It allows a lot more people to go squadronless, which, hey, I love going squadronless. And I love when my opponent's got all these bombers and I've got point defenses, and I'm just like, nope, no. Did you do all that stuff? Did you re-roll all that stuff to get that double black? Oh well, now it's a blank. Haha. Like, I love doing that, and it does it infinitely. There's lots of errata that you could do to this. There's lots of ways that you could rewrite it to say, hey, you have to exhaust it, or it's like a once per turn, or maybe one turn per game, or maybe at the start of the game you put 2 round counters on this and only works for those rounds, or something like that. There's all kinds of ways to redesign this card so it's more balanced with the game. But the easiest way to do it is with a points adjustment. Make people think a little bit twice. I think this one needs to go way up. I can see this one being 10 points and still getting taken a lot. But at least it wouldn't be an auto include. I think at least you'd be like, or maybe I should just go with an ion cannon and focus more offensively for half the points, or something like that. It's just, I feel like it's so strong. I think, let me know if you agree. Do you think people would still take this if it were 10 points? Or is that way too big of a jump? Or is it not enough of a jump? Should it be higher than 10? I'd love to hear some of your thoughts. That's going to do it for this round of predictions and speculation in the Star Wars Armada world. We'll have to wait and see if we do get any points rebalancing, errata, or anything like that this year. If we do, hopefully some of these cards are in there. I'd love to see some changes to the way we typically build our ships, and it might make way for some really cool upgrades. Cluster bombs, maybe? I'd love to see cluster bomb meta actually show up. It's like one of those really cool cards that I never get to use, but I'd love to use it more often. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I will talk to you later. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are out of this world and help make this whole channel possible. I will talk to you all later. The spice must flow. And always wash your socks.